He said he only wrote songs for the money. But that was a lie I wanted to believe. Because if I didn't, I would have to face the truth that every melody he composed was a confession I was too blind to hear. The first time I met Elijah Hart, he was drunk on bourbon and heartbreak. His face was plastered across some dingy bar stage in Brooklyn, pouring his lungs out into a cracked microphone while everyone else ignored him. Except me. Maybe I was a fool. Or maybe I just wanted to see someone fall harder than I had. "You're terrible at hiding pain," I told him when he staggered off the stage. He smirked, tossed me a look sharp enough to cut, and said, "Then maybe you should stop watching." That was how it began. Not with fireworks or the sweetness of fate, but with bitterness, denial, and the kind of tension that makes breathing feel like a crime. Elijah wasn't like the men I dated before. He wasn't clean or polished. His talent was raw, almost violent. The kind of brilliance that scared people away because it revealed too much of them. And yet, he stayed in my head long after that night. Like a melody you hate yourself for humming. I should have walked away. I should have let him self-destruct in peace. But I didn't. The second time we met, it was raining. Manhattan rain. The kind that feels like it's trying to drown the entire city, flooding the sidewalks with blurred neon reflections. I was running late for work, soaked and irritated, when I heard Ithis' voice again. Not from a stage this time, but from under an awning outside a record store. Elijah, guitar in hand, hair plastered to his forehead, singing like the storm belonged to him. People rushed past. Umbrellas colliding, cabs honking, the city moving at its merciless pace. But he stood still, unbothered, like he was challenging the rain to wash him away. I froze. Not because of the song, though God, it was beautiful, but because of the words. They weren't just lyrics. They were an open wound. Don't you dare say you don't see me. Don't you dare pretend you don't know. And that was when I realized wasn't singing to the faceless crowd. He wasn't singing for strangers. He was singing for me. I didn't understand it at first. Why me? Why the hell would someone like Elijah, with his reckless genius and broken edges, care about someone like me, Nathan Cross, the guy who worked corporate hours by day and drowned himself in coffee by night? But the signs were there. I just didn't want to admit them. The late-night texts disguised as jokes. The way he lingered when our shoulders brushed. The hush in his voice when he asked, "What do you hear in my music, Nate?" I always answered with something safe. Something that wouldn't tear down the walls I had built around myself after years of failed love and half-hearted promises. But the truth. I heard him. Every note was him screaming a confession he was too afraid to say. One night, I cornered him about it. We were in his tiny apartment, the kind of place that smelled like cigarettes and coffee grounds. Papers littered everywhere. His piano shoved against a cracked wall. He had just played something new, soft, haunting, the kind of melody that makes your chest ache before you even realize why. "What are you hiding in these songs, Elijah?" I asked, my voice low. He froze. His hands hovered over the keys, trembling slightly. His eyes, usually sharp and defiant, looked almost scared. "You wouldn't want to know," he whispered. "Yes, I do." He swallowed hard, then forced a smirk. "It's just music, Nate. Don't make it something it's not." But I knew better. God, I knew better. The cruel part. I loved the songs before I loved the man. It was safer that way. To cling to the melodies instead of the broken soul behind them. To tell myself that what stirred in my chest was admiration, not love. To pretend that the ache in my throat every time he played was just appreciation for art, not desperation for him. But lies only last so long. Because one night, after another of his so-called confessions, disguised in piano chords, he caught me staring. And instead of looking away, I stayed. "You hear it, don't you?" he asked softly. My chest tightened. "Hear what?" "The truth." I couldn't answer. Not then. Not when everything between us was about to unravel. Love, in its cruelest form, doesn't come with timing. It barges in when you're least prepared. It demands when you have nothing to give. And when it's between two men who've built entire lives on silence and masks, it becomes a war. Elijah fought it with music. I fought it with denial. But music doesn't lie. And denial only lasts until the moment someone touches you like you're the only thing they've ever wanted. The first time Elijah kissed me, it wasn't planned. It wasn't gentle either. It was messy, desperate, like he was drowning and I was the last breath he could steal. And I kissed him back. God help me, I kissed him back. But love born in secrets doesn't stay hidden forever. The more I loved him, the more terrified I became. Because what if I was just a muse? Just another lyric in his endless string of heartbreak songs. What if the music would always come first, and I would always be second? And worse, what if one day, the music stopped? That was the question that haunted me. Because falling in love with Elijah Hart wasn't just falling for a man. It was falling for a symphony I could never own. And yet, I couldn't stop. Not when his music was already tangled with the rhythm of my heartbeat. Elijah didn't play another note that night. He just sat there, staring at me like I had pulled the ground from beneath his feet. And maybe I had, because I was the only one who ever called him out on his silence, the silence hidden between his chords. He tipped back the whiskey glass, swallowed hard, then muttered, "You think I'm some cliché, don't you? The tortured artist writing songs about love he'll never get." My throat tightened. Maybe I think you're hiding behind those songs because it's easier than saying the words. His jaw clenched. The room felt too small, the air too thick. He looked like he wanted to throw the glass at the wall or kiss me until I couldn't breathe. Instead, he laughed. Bitter. Hollow. "You don't get it, Nate. Music is the only way I can say it without ruining everything." I wanted to ask say what, but I already knew. I just wasn't ready to hear it out loud. The weeks that followed blurred into a rhythm of closeness and distance. Elijah would call me at 2 in the morning, his voice low and rough, asking if I wanted to come over. Not for sex. Never that. Just company. He'd sit at the piano, playing half-formed songs. His eyes flicking toward me like he was begging me to understand something he couldn't say. And I went. Every time. At work, my coworkers joked that I looked like hell late nights. Too much coffee. Distracted stares out the window. I brushed them off, blaming deadlines. But the truth was simpler. Elijah was haunting me. His music seeped into my skin, into my dreams, until I couldn't tell where the melody ended and I began. One night, I asked him, "Why me? Why do you always call me?" He hesitated, fingers stilled on the keys. His voice was almost a whisper. "Because you're the only one who listens." Something broke inside me then. Something I had been guarding for years. But the closer I got to him, the more I realized Elijah wasn't just battling unspoken love, was battling himself. He hated the industry, the expectations, the way people wanted his songs but not him. He'd been signed once, chewed up by a record label that demanded hits and spat him out when he didn't deliver fast enough. Since then, he played in bars, wrote for others, kept himself hidden behind false bravado and cheap liquor. He once told me, "Music takes everything from you, Nate. It doesn't give back." But I disagreed. His music gave me him. And maybe that was selfish. But I clung to it anyway. The first time I saw him truly break was on a Tuesday night. We'd been sitting in silence for an hour. Me on the couch. Him at the piano. Replaying the same 3 chords over and over until it felt like my heartbeat was syncing with them. Suddenly, he slammed the keys, the sound sharp and ugly, and buried his head in his hands. "I can't do this," he choked out. I stood, my chest aching. "Do what?" He looked up, eyes bloodshot, voice cracking. "This. These songs. Pretending they don't mean anything when they mean everything." The words hung between us like a blade. I froze, every instinct screaming at me to run, to protect myself from the avalanche about to fall. But then he whispered, broken and raw, "I'm in love with you, Nate." I should have said it back. God, I wanted to. The words clawed at my throat, begging to be released. But fear is a cruel thing. Instead, I shook my head. "You don't mean that. You're drunk." "I'm not drunk," he snapped, standing so suddenly the stool clattered to the floor. "Don't you dare dismiss this as some drunken mistake. You hear it in every song, don't you? You know." My chest tightened. My mouth opened, then closed. Couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Because yes, I knew. I had always known. But admitting it meant opening a door I wasn't sure I could survive walking through. So I did the worst thing possible. I left. For days. I avoided him. I buried myself in work. Ignored his texts. Pretended like I hadn't seen the voicemail where he said, "Voice hoarse. If you don't come back, I'll stop writing." But even distance didn't help. Every song on the radio sounded like him. Every city street hummed with the ghost of his chords. He was everywhere, even when I tried to erase him. And I hated myself for it. Because I had walked away not out of indifference, but out of terror that if I let myself love him, I would lose him the way I'd lost everything else before. When I finally went back to his apartment, the place was darker than usual. The curtains drawn, the piano untouched. He sat on the floor, back against the wall, staring at a blank sheet of music. "You came back," he said quietly, without looking up. "I shouldn't have left." His laugh was sharp, bitter. "You always leave. Everyone does." I knelt down, my hands trembling. "Elijah, listen to me. I was scared. Not of you. Of myself. Of what this means." Finally, his eyes met mine, filled with anger and hurt and something far more dangerous, hope. "And what does it mean, Nate?" I swallowed hard. My voice shook. "It means I can't pretend anymore. Not about the music. Not about you." The kiss that followed was nothing like the first. It wasn't desperate or messy. It was slow, deliberate, the kind of kiss that says, "I see you, I hear you, and I'm not running anymore." His hands cupped my face like I was something fragile, something worth protecting. And for the first time, I let myself believe it. But love built on broken foundations doesn't heal overnight. Even after that night, there were doubts, fights, my fear of losing him, his fear of being loved for his songs instead of himself. "Tell me you love me, not the music," he said one night, voice trembling. "I love both," I admitted. "But without you, the music means nothing." His eyes softened, and for a moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, you could make this work. But fate, cruel as always, wasn't done with us yet. Because just when I thought I had chosen him, the world came knocking. And Elijah had to decide whether he would keep hiding his confessions in music or finally risk everything to live them out loud. That night, he played me a song I had never heard before. No lyrics, just piano. Soft, aching, beautiful. When he finished, he whispered, "This is the last one. After this, I don't know if I can keep writing." I stared at him, panic rising. "What do you mean?" He met my gaze, his eyes glistening. "Because if I give you this, I've given you everything. There's nothing left to hide." And for the first time, I realized the truth. The music wasn't just his confession. It was his shield. And if he let it fall, he was handing me the most dangerous thing of all, his heart. Elijah didn't just play that night. He bled. Every note was sharp, deliberate, laced with the kind of pain that made people in the audience go quiet without even realizing why. I stood in the back, half hidden by shadows, watching him like a coward, because I couldn't stay away even when I told myself I should. He hadn't seen me since the night of the confession. Since the night I left, came back, and kissed him like he was both salvation and destruction. And now, here he was, pouring it all out under a spotlight while strangers drank their whiskey and pretended they understood. But I understood. God, I understood. The song wasn't just music. It was war. Every chord was a demand. Every pause was an accusation. And the lyrics, when he finally opened his mouth and sang, were a knife straight to my chest. You wanted truth but ran from it. You wanted love but feared it. So tell me, Nathan, what do you want now? I froze. My name. He had sung my name. No one else noticed, not really. To them, it was just another broken-hearted song. But to me, it was a spotlight brighter than any stage light, burning through every lie I had wrapped around myself. And when his eyes finally found me in the crowd, I knew. He hadn't sung to them. He had sung to me. I left before the set was over. Couldn't breathe. Out on the cold Manhattan street, the rain had started again, misting the pavement with blurred reflections of neon signs. I walked fast, head down, as if I could outrun the sound of his voice echoing in my skull. Nathan, what do you want now? The truth was brutal in its simplicity. I wanted him. Not the music. Not the illusion. Just him. But wanting and having are two different things. 3 nights later, Elijah showed up at my apartment. I opened the door to find him leaning against the frame, drenched from the rain, no umbrella, his hair sticking to his face. His eyes were wild, glassy, a dangerous mix of whiskey and desperation. You didn't stay, he said, his voice raw. I swallowed. I couldn't. Why? His fists clenched at his sides. Why the hell do you keep running from me? I'm not. Don't lie to me, Nate. He snapped, his voice breaking. You hear it. You feel it. And you're still pretending like I'm just some song you can turn off when it gets too real. I flinched. Because he was right. That was exactly what I had done. I opened my mouth, searching for words, but he stepped closer, his chest almost against mine, his breath uneven. Do you love me? It was the question I had been avoiding for weeks, for months, maybe since the night I first heard him sing. And God help me, the answer was yes. But the word caught in my throat like a confession too sharp to say. He saw it in my silence. His shoulders sagged, his eyes dimmed, and with a bitter laugh, he turned and walked away. I didn't stop him, and I hated myself for it. Days turned into weeks. Elijah stopped calling, stopped texting, stopped playing at the bar where he usually performed. It was like he had vanished from the city, leaving me stranded with nothing but the echo of his last question. Do you love me? I threw myself into work, into anything that would keep me from answering. But silence has a way of breaking you. At night, the apartment felt like a coffin, empty and suffocating. I found myself replaying his old demos, the songs he had written before everything fell apart. And every chord sounded like a goodbye. Then came the night of the showcase. A friend from work dragged me along, saying some underground label was scouting new talent and Elijah's name was on the flyer. I told myself I wouldn't go, but there I was, sitting in the back of a packed room, heart pounding against my ribs. When Elijah walked on stage, he looked different, sharper, harder, like he had set himself on fire just to keep moving. He didn't scan the crowd this time, didn't look for me. He sat at the piano, fingers steady, and played. But the song wasn't like the others. It wasn't a confession. It was a verdict. The lyrics cut through me like glass. I loved you in silence, but silence betrayed me. I gave you my music, but you never gave me you. So here's the last song. Nathan, the last song you'll ever have. The crowd erupted in applause, but I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, because I knew what he meant. He was done. I left the bar before the encore, stumbling into the cold night like a man escaping a crime scene. For the first time, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't just afraid of loving him. I was afraid of losing him. And now, maybe I already had. The following week was hell. Everywhere I went, I felt his absence like a missing note in a song. His silence was louder than any melody. I kept drafting messages. I am sorry. I was wrong. I love you but never sent them. Cowardice still chained me. Until the phone rang. It was a mutual friend. Panicked. Nathan, you need to come. Elijah's in the hospital. The world tilted. My chest collapsed. I didn't even ask what happened. I just ran. By the time I reached the hospital, it was past midnight. The hall smelled of antiseptic and despair. A nurse pointed me to his room, and I froze at the doorway. Elijah lay in the bed, pale, and 4 hooked to his arm. His hands, the same hands that had played 1,000 confessions into existence, trembled even in sleep. I stepped closer, my throat burning. What happened? I whispered to the nurse. Exhaustion. Malnutrition. Stress. He's been pushing himself too hard. I swallowed hard. Of course he had. That was Elijah. He gave everything until there was nothing left. And I had let him. Sitting by his bedside, I finally let the words out. Quiet, broken, but true. I love you, Elijah. Not the music. Not the songs. Just you. I should have said it sooner. I should have stayed. He stirred slightly, eyes fluttering open. When he saw me, he gave a weak, bitter smile. You finally said it. Tears burned my eyes. Yeah. I'm sorry it took this long. His voice was hoarse, fragile. Don't be sorry. Just don't leave again. I reached for his hand, gripping it tight. Never. And for the first time, silence didn't feel like a punishment. Felt like peace. The days after Elijah's collapse were a strange kind of limbo. Hospitals have a way of suspending time. The world outside kept spinning, subway cars screeching, stock tickers running, people chasing deadlines, but inside those pale walls, everything slowed to a crawl. I stayed by his side, barely leaving except when the nurses insisted I get coffee or air. Elijah didn't fight them. He was too weak. But his eyes always found mine when I returned, like he was checking to make sure I hadn't slipped out of his world again. The first night, he slept most of the time, The second night, he whispered, "I don't know how to stop burning myself out." I squeezed his hand. "Then let me help. You don't have to set yourself on fire just to keep everyone else warm." His lips curved in a faint smile. Pained but real. "That sounds like something out of one of my songs." "Maybe you've been rubbing off on me," I said softly. And for the first time in weeks, he laughed. It was weak, broken around the edges, but it was laughter. And it felt like oxygen. Recovery wasn't instant. Elijah hated feeling helpless. He hated the hospital food, the constant check-ins, the way his body betrayed him with exhaustion after walking just a few steps down the hall. But more than anything, he hated being watched. "You don't have to babysit me," he muttered one afternoon, shifting under the blankets. I leaned back in the chair, crossing my arms. "I'm not babysitting. I'm keeping you company." "Same thing." "No," I said firmly. "Babysitting implies you're a child. You're just a stubborn idiot who needs someone to remind him he's human." He snorted. "You're really bad at compliments, Nate." "Maybe, but I'm good at staying. Get used to it." His expression softened at that, though he didn't admit it. But later that night, as he drifted off, I heard him mumble, "Don't leave again." I didn't. One evening, about a week later, Elijah asked for his notebook. I handed it to him carefully, the worn leather cover frayed at the edges, pages crammed with half-written lyrics and smudged pencil marks. He flipped through it slowly, his fingers trembling. "I don't know if I can write anymore," he confessed. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed him fearful, fragile. I moved closer. "Then don't. Not right now. You don't owe anyone music." He glanced up at me, searching my face. "Not even you." The question cut deep. Because once, I might have said yes. Once, I might have admitted that his songs were the only way I knew how to love him safely, without risk. But things were different now. I took the notebook from his hands, set it aside, and cupped his face gently. "I don't want the music. I want you. If you never write another note, I'll still be here." His breath hitched, and for a long moment, he just stared at me. Then, quietly, he whispered, "Say it again." "I want you," I repeated. "Only you." And when he leaned forward, weak but insistent, I kissed him. Slow, tender, careful not to disturb the four or the machines, but real. The kind of kiss that wasn't about desperation or denial. The kind that said, "This is home." When Elijah was discharged, he moved into my apartment. It wasn't planned. Not really. He just didn't want to go back to his lonely place with the cracked piano and stacks of unpaid bills. And I didn't want him there, drowning in silence again. So one evening, I brought him home with me, set his notebook on my desk, and told him to claim the bed instead of the couch. He tried to argue. "I'll get in the way. You have work." You'll be with me," I interrupted. "That's all that matters." He blinked, stunned, like the simplicity of it was something he couldn't process. But he didn't argue again. Living together wasn't perfect. Elijah had mood swings some mornings. He was warm and playful, cooking terrible scrambled eggs that somehow tasted perfect because he made them. Other mornings, he was distant, snapping at me for hovering, retreating into his notebook only to abandon it halfway through a line. I tried to be patient, but I wasn't always successful. One night, after he snapped, "Stop watching me like I'm going to break," I lost it. "Do you even realize what it felt like?" I shouted. "Seeing you in that hospital bed, not knowing if you were going to wake up. You scared the hell out of me, Elijah. And I can't just pretend like that didn't happen." He froze, guilt flashing across his face. I softened, my voice breaking. "I watch you because I don't want to lose you. Not because I think you're weak. Because you matter. To me. More than anything." His shoulders sagged. Slowly. He walked over and rested his forehead against mine. "I don't know how to be loved," he whispered. "Then let me teach you." I whispered back. Weeks turned into months. We built something fragile but real. Morning coffees. Late-night talks. Arguments followed by quiet apologies. And laughter spilling into spaces that had once only known silence. Elijah began playing piano again, not for bars. Not for an audience. Just for us. Sometimes he'd play while I worked at the table, glancing at me with a secret smile when I caught him improvising my name into a melody. And I began to realize something terrifying and wonderful. The songs hadn't been a confession after all. They had been a question. A plea. A hope. And my answer wasn't the music. It was me. Staying. One night, months after the hospital, I came home to find him sitting at the piano, a new sheet of music in front of him. He looked up, nervous. "I wrote something," he said quietly. "For you. Not about you. Not around you. For you." My chest tightened. "Can I hear it?" He nodded, fingers trembling as they touched the keys. The melody was simple, gentle, nothing like his earlier haunting confessions. It was sunlight instead of shadows, home instead of heartbreak. When he finished, he looked at me, fear and hope tangled in his eyes. "Well." I walked over, cupped his face, and kissed him softly. "It's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. But not because of the music. Because it's you." His smile was shaky, but real. And for the first time, I believed we weren't just surviving. We were beginning. Love wasn't perfect. It never would be. But it was ours. And maybe that was enough. It started with a rooftop. Elijah said he needed aerial air. Not the recycled kind pumping through our apartment's vents. So we climbed the stairs of our building one Saturday evening, carrying 2 coffees and an old blanket. The city stretched out before us, glowing in gold and pink, the skyline jagged but breathtaking. For a while, we didn't talk. He strummed his guitar lazily. No words, just chords that floated into the cooling night. I leaned against the railing, sipping my coffee, watching him. The way his fingers moved over the strings. The way his face softened when he thought no one was looking. It was music. Even without a melody. Finally, he glanced up. "You're staring." "Maybe I like what I see," I said simply. He snorted, rolling his eyes, but the faint blush at his ears betrayed him. Rooftops became our sanctuary. When the noise of the city grew too loud, when his old demons clawed at him, or when my own fears whispered that happiness couldn't last, we went up there. Sometimes we argued. Sometimes we said nothing at all. But no matter what, the rooftop always gave us space to breathe, to remember why we were still fighting for this fragile, beautiful thing between us. One evening, Elijah brought his notebook. He sat cross-legged on the blanket, chewing his pen, then shoved the page toward me. "Lyrics. Read them." I hesitated, scanning the messy scrawl. My chest tightened with every line. They weren't about pain this time. They weren't about longing or silence. They were about me. About us. About laughter in the kitchen. About my terrible habit of leaving socks on the floor. About the way I touched his face like he was made of glass. By the time I finished, My vision blurred. "Elijah," I whispered. He shrugged, pretending nonchalance, but his hands trembled. "It's not a confession this time. Gratitude, I guess." I leaned forward, kissed him slow and deep, the city humming beneath us. "Then let me be the one who's grateful." But love, even when steady, still tested us. Elijah struggled with his career offers from labels that wanted him to write heartbreak songs. Gigs that paid more if he sang about loss instead of love. He hated it. Hated the idea of being trapped again. One night, he slammed his phone onto the table. "They don't want me. They want the broken version of me. The drunk, miserable, bleeding out my heart Elijah Hart." I took his face in my hands. "Then don't give them that. Give them this Elijah. The one who wakes me up at 2 a.m. with pancakes. The one who laughs when I burn toast. The one who knows love isn't just tragedy." His eyes burned, and for a moment, I thought he might cry. Instead, he pulled me into a kiss so fierce it left us both gasping. "You make me believe I can be that man," he whispered against my lips. "You already are," I said. The turning point came with a show. A small venue. Nothing fancy, just a local open mic. Elijah had been invited to headline. He almost didn't go, muttering about how nobody wanted to hear songs that didn't bleed. But I pushed him. "Play them anyway. Play you." So he did. That night, Elijah walked onto the stage with nothing but his guitar. No whiskey, no bravado, just him. And when he sang, the room went silent. The song wasn't about heartbreak. It was about hope. About finding someone in the chaos of the city and realizing love didn't have to destroy, it could heal. It was about us. I stood in the back, tears slipping down my face, as strangers swayed and nodded, drawn into the warmth of his voice. When the song ended, the applause was thunderous. But all I saw was him looking for me in the crowd. And when our eyes met, I knew this wasn't just music anymore. This was his truth. Our truth. Later, on the rooftop, Elijah admitted, "I was terrified up there." I brushed his hair from his eyes. "But you did it." He smiled, small but genuine. "Because you were in the room." And maybe that was the answer to every unspoken question between us. He didn't need to hide confessions in his songs anymore. He had me to say them to. Months later, we lay side by side on that same rooftop, the city buzzing below, our fingers intertwined. "Do you ever regret it?" Elijah asked quietly. "Regret what?" "Loving me." I turned, meeting his eyes. "Never. Not for a second." He exhaled, relief softening his features. "Good. Because I think no. I know I'll never stop writing songs. But for once, I don't care if the world hears them. They're for you. All of them. Always." My throat tightened. I kissed his knuckles, letting the silence say what words couldn't. And for the first time, I realized the truth. The man and the melody weren't separate anymore. They were one and the same. And I loved both equally, fiercely, forever. Love hadn't come to us with ease. Came with fire, with scars, with battles neither of us thought we could win. But in the end, it gave us something stronger than songs, stronger than fear. It gave us each other. And maybe that was all we ever needed. The night of the rooftop concert felt like a circle closing. It wasn't Madison Square Garden or a sold-out arena. It was just a few dozen friends, neighbors, and strangers gathered under fairy lights, sitting cross-legged on a rooftop Elijah had rented for the night. But to him, to me, it might as well have been the world. Elijah was nervous. His hands shook as he tuned his guitar. His voice cracked when he said hello into the microphone. But when he glanced at me standing off to the side, he steadied. He always did. This song, he said into the mic, is the one I never thought I'd sing. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't think I'd ever be brave enough. He paused, then added, his gaze locking on mine. It's about someone who taught me that love isn't supposed to hurt all the time. That sometimes, love is laughter at 3 a.m. and burnt pancakes. Sometimes, it's forgiveness. And sometimes, it's just staying. He started to play. The chords were soft, unhurried. His voice, though trembling at first, grew stronger with each line. The lyrics painted our story, not the heartbreak, not the chaos, but the quiet moments, the rooftop nights, the mornings when he let me sleep in and scribbled lyrics beside me. The way we fought but always found our way back. The crowd swayed. Some wiped at their eyes. But for me, the world disappeared until it was only him and me, and the song that carried us both. When the last note faded, the rooftop erupted in applause. Elijah set his guitar down, looking stunned, as if he hadn't expected anyone to clap at all. I crossed the space between us before he could protest. I pulled him into my arms, kissed him right there in front of everyone, tasting the salt of his tears. He laughed against my lips. You're insane. Maybe, I whispered, but I'm yours. That night, after everyone had gone and only the city remained, we lay side by side on the blanket, watching the stars blur into the glow of skyscrapers. I think, Elijah said softly, I finally understand. Understand what? Why I kept writing all those songs I couldn't sing. Why I buried my feelings in melodies. It wasn't just fear. It was waiting. Waiting for someone who'd listen, not just hear. Someone who'd know the difference. I turned my head, meeting his eyes. And now, he smiled, slow and genuine. Now, I don't have to hide anything. Not in songs. Not in myself. I pressed a kiss to his temple, my chest tightening with a kind of happiness I didn't think I'd ever know. Life didn't turn into a fairy tale overnight. There were still struggles, labels that pushed Elijah to write what sold, not what mattered. Late nights when doubt crept back in. Times when I worried that one day, the weight of his past would pull him under again. But we weren't the same people anymore. We had learned how to fight together, not against each other. When the industry asked Elijah for heartbreak, he gave them songs of love instead. Not sappy, not perfect real. Songs about how hard it was to stay, but how much harder it was to walk away. Songs about rooftop nights and small mercies. Songs that reminded people that love didn't have to be grand to be worth singing about. And to everyone's surprise, those songs caught on. Maybe because the world was tired of tragedy. Maybe because people wanted to believe in something softer. Whatever the reason, Elijah's career didn't just survive, it bloomed. But fame didn't change the way we ended our nights. We still came back to the rooftop. Still shared coffee under the stars. Still tangled ourselves in a blanket, whispering about everything and nothing, until sleep pulled us under. On our anniversary, Elijah surprised me. He led me upstairs, guitar in hand, the city buzzing below. A string of lights hung from the railing, casting a warm glow over the space. I wrote something new, he said, his voice trembling with nerves I hadn't seen in months. I sat, heart thudding, as he strummed the first chords. The song was simple, honest. It wasn't about hiding or confessing. It was about a love that endured not because it was easy, but because it was worth it. Halfway through, he set the guitar aside, reached into his pocket, and pulled out a small box. My breath caught. "Nathan," he said, his voice breaking. "I used to think music was the only way I could say what I felt. But with you, I don't need songs. I just need words. So here they are. Will you marry me?" The city roared below us, cars honking, voices carrying. But all I heard was him. All I saw was the boy who had once hidden his heart in melodies, now offering it freely in his trembling hands. "Yes," I whispered, tears streaming. "God, yes." He laughed, sliding the ring onto my finger, then kissed me until the city itself seemed to disappear. Years from now, when people talk about Elijah Hart, they'll talk about the musician who redefined what it meant to write love songs. But me, I'll remember the boy on the rooftop, the boy who wrote songs not to be heard, but to be understood, the boy who loved me enough to finally let himself be seen. And I'll remember the moment I realized the truth. I didn't just fall in love with his music. I fell in love with him. And that, more than any melody, will be the song I carry forever. The rooftop lights flickered softly. His guitar rested against the railing. His hand was warm in mine. We had written a story together, messy, painful, beautiful. And as I leaned into his shoulder, I knew this was our forever. Not just in music, not just in words, but in every heartbeat, every silence, every night we chose each other again. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.